those. Jake's happy to second them. All in favour? That's against. That's carried. Thank you. First up is our public forum. So we've got, I think, is Harrison McAvoy here? Oh yeah, Harrison's here. Great, come on up. So you've got 5 minutes and you've got a presentation there. So we'll hand over to you. And I don't, have they, if you want to click, have you got a clicker? Oh, great. Cool, we're in your hands, Harrison.
Oh, cool. Good morning, councillors, and thanks for having me. Welcome to the end of the year. So something that's popped up quite prominently lately since the beginning of December has been the government's position on rates capping and the discussions that are going to happen towards the end of today and in future around this table around how to respond to that. I obviously wear a lot of hats in community organisations around the city, and there are a number of things that have sort of flagged up with discussions with people that I just thought might be worthwhile bringing to your attention, and some just sort of thoughts of my own. There we go. So this is just from a pure politics perspective, is that we've seen rates capping work around the world, and we've seen the outcome of it. It's not usually great in the sort of resolving long-standing structural issues. While it's a move, it's not necessarily the one that kind of creates the sort of well-developed and strong local systems that support communities. It tends to do the opposite, actually, and deprive communities of the funding that they need to do things with. So in that vein, we have sort of, I come from two perspectives. So one is that I work with a community organisation, St Albans Association, but I'm not speaking on behalf of any of these organisations today. And we are heavily reliant on council grant funding. As probably as a source of income, it's our second highest after the operation of the St Albans Community Centre in our balance book. It's basically the bread and butter of how we, as an organisation, provide the services we do at the subsidised rates we do to our community. Without it, it is one of those kinds of, it begs the question of where would we go? We'd need to seek other grant funding. We do seek other grant funding from COGS and RATA, but it would leave us with significant shortfall if, as part of this rates capping program, the sort of strengthening communities funding and those sort of equivalent fundings started to disappear from council's budget books. That's not something we're overly we want to see. And obviously it does present us with a question of what would happen if that balance is trying to be made and what's going to be cut from the community spaces. So obviously part of the discussions was that the amount of money you'd have to find to save would have to be basically be the equivalent of the entire community's team budget in the annual plan. So sure, that might have rung a couple of alarm bells, but it's sort of a long question of what's that going to do. The second, obviously, I work with an urbanist group, and we do a lot of development around the we're working in housing now, working more in transport as that landscape changes. And there's obviously been a lot of sort of discussion lately with the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission, putting two of Christchurch's transport priorities way up on the list and saying these are important things. The question then will be, where's the CapEx coming for those? So if we are looking in the long term at there being, issues around funding, and obviously CapEx is a lot easier to cut than OpEx. If we start to lose out on that funding, what are we going to miss out on? Where are we going to have gaps in our network, especially with intensification around these corridors sort of being prioritised? Are we going to actually be able to develop the corridors to support that growth? So that's another thought process in the long term. The kind of final points I just want to touch on from my perspective is just one on asset sales. So obviously this was a big topic during the election, and most people around this table signed on to a pledge. I would just, in a way, refresh that the city does not support this. The polling before the election was pretty clear that there was a large majority were against any sale of assets, strategic or otherwise. And while obviously there's small bits of property that can be sold, the kinds of like the port and the airport and even down to a naval and city care, they all provide a subsidised service to the people of the city that we would otherwise have to pay more for on the open market likely. We've seen this happen overseas with the sort of the privatisation in the 90s in the UK and the sort of outcomes they're having with water services and civic services now over there being much more expensive than comparable countries in Europe. There's just in the long run, these assets belong to the people of Christchurch, and it's the job of this space and of CCHL to manage them in a way that is beneficial for all generations to come, not just for the current perspective of finances. So yeah, I just as a thought is that just exhaust all other options.
Come up. So do you want to just wrap up?
Sorry. Just exhaust all other options before we look at sort of slashing and burning. And even though I wasn't even aware that Pauline had done this because I asked to speak last week, was that there's a notice of motion today to ask the government to contribute more towards this situation. So I would argue and urge you to support that. Cool. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming in.
Cool.
Okay, so we'll go to Peter Ryan's report, item number 7. Are you here, Peter?